Hello everyone, welcome to my channel, The Offbeat Introvert. This is your favorite introvert Raj, your favorite offbeat introvert. As you probably know by this moment that I often challenge myself and dare myself to experience new things. As part of that, for some time I've been daring and challenging myself with a new experiment in order to experience a new thing. In this video, I'm just going to talk about something that I achieved recently as part of my new language learning dream and goal. So recently I've achieved 500 days streak in learning Dutch language. It's always has been a dream for me to move to a different country with a different language and learn its language and stick with it. So I felt like I've done something as part of this dream of mine, and I felt it would be good to share with folks who are willing to try a new thing or learn a new language in their life. So if you are one of those people who just want to learn a new language and improve your skills in a different level, or you've just moved to a different country and you are willing to learn a new language in the country that you're residing in, then you should watch this video where I share my experience in learning Dutch language and some tips and tricks for learning Dutch language or any language in particular, which can be really helpful to you. First, when I moved to the Netherlands, I did not start learning the language immediately because I felt English is spoken widely whenever I go out, or people were really understanding English. So for the first couple of months, I had no idea of learning it as of yet because I felt Dutch pronunciations are really hard. But the real interest started out of a necessity that whenever I go to the supermarkets, everything will be in Dutch and it will be really hard to understand even the basic ingredients that are involved or any of the items or the type that we are about to get. So it was really difficult for me to survive in that aspect whenever that I'm just trying to go to a supermarket or whenever I traveled alone on a public transportation where some of the things were in Dutch. So for example, when I first traveled with a transfer where like I had to get down off a bus and get into a tram, I just used the transport card and it said overstrap. I did not know what that means. So at that point, like I realized it's really important to learn a language, at least on a basic level, that it will be really helpful for me to survive here, and also it will be really fun to learn the language and feel like a local here. So that's also one of the reasons that I started learning Dutch at the first place. When I started, I did not have much of idea of how difficult the language will be or how long I will be able to stick with it. But I'm a really deterministic person. So once I take something on my hand, I will definitely not let it go until I feel like I've sufficiently achieved it. So that's what I applied on this as well. So I consistently followed learning this with a discipline, and I'm also really into maintaining streaks and gamified versions, because one of my favorite quotes by the famous stand-up comedian Jerry Seinfeld was that do not break the chain. So which typically means that we have to incrementally improve ourselves without breaking the chain of doing something on a day-to-day basis, that it forms as a habit and we achieve the goals based upon the habits that we have cultivated based on this approach. So that's what I also followed in this case. So basically, consistency is the key to achieve anything in our life, especially our goals. So that's what I usually try to incrementally apply, where I consistently improve a little bit on a day-to-day basis so that I see better results or improvements on whatever I'm trying to achieve at the end of this consistent habit I'm forming. Personally, I feel that this is really hard because it is really hard to consistently stick with something on a day-to-day basis for a long time without seeing any immediate results. So people who usually want to see immediate results would not be able to survive this, because I was such a person before where I used to do something for a short amount of time and see an immediate result at a short amount of time, but whenever I don't see it, I'll just drop it immediately. But the hard fact is that whenever you want to achieve something, it doesn't come so immediately for hardworking people like me. So I often convince myself to start off small and consistently stick with it and make smaller improvements to the progress that you are making to see better results. So I feel like if you stick with this on a regular basis, we will be able to see good results at a good amount of time, say like 3 months or 100 days, etc., but not so immediately, like within 1 month or so. I also want to point out that I did not master the language yet, because Dutch is really intense language. As part of these 500 days, I just tried to learn the basics, and I wanted to make sure that I am able to survive in the Netherlands by knowing basic Dutch. So as part of this 500 days, I was able to reach the beginner level on a good scale. So I felt like I'm able to comparatively understand better things, but I'm not in a conversational state yet where I can fluently converse in Dutch, but I'm getting there. I believe if I stick with this on a next level learning, I will be able to achieve that level as well. To first start with learning a new language, I looked for some free and good tools. So I found Duolingo, the online app where I'm able to like freely register and try out learning new language. Also, this is not a paid promotion or anything. This is like a genuine review, which where I will also share like good and bad things about using Duolingo. So I use Duolingo and I'm very much like some of the features that they have. Like they have gamified version of language learning. There they will put you in league and they will make you compete with others in their league so that you compete with them and move to the next league. And so far I've reached the final league, which is the Diamond League, but it doesn't cover like intense pronunciation and vocabularies related to Dutch. It just covers the basic part, so it's not like a completely highly professional tool. Even for the paid version, it's the same amount of language data that they provide. So for Dutch, I recommend you to use their free version. It's completely enough and sufficient for you to go through with the basic learning to a beginner level of Dutch language. First, let me start off with what I liked about Duolingo, some of the features, and then I'll also talk about things that I did not like. So, for beginners, free app is really good. They also have a pro version. When you get it, you will be avoiding seeing ads. Also, you will get perks like you can correct your mistakes immediately, and there are also perks like you need not use your bounty lingots on expert level practice lessons. So, those are some of the perks for a premium users. But for a beginner level, you will see ads and your mistakes will get piled up. However, I like one major thing about using Duolingo free version is that whenever you achieve a significant milestone, they will give you a 3 days free of their premium version that they call it as super version now. So you can use all the features of the super version for 3 days for achieving any significant milestones. Like first, when you start, you will get a 10th milestone day. Then whenever you are completing like 25, 50, and so on, if you are keeping up with your streak, you will get this as part of your recognition as a perk. So I think that's kind of good rewarding mechanism that I see as part of all the 500 days that I have used and learned language in Duolingo. As I mentioned, they have gamified leagues where you will be placed in a particular league based upon your progress. Initially, you will be placed in a lower league, then as and when you progress, you will be moved to the next bigger league. So the competition also gets tougher because in order to move to a next league, then you will need to be in like first, sixth position or 10th position based upon the league you are in. So that will get tough as and when you progress. You will be able to continue in the same league if you are maintaining within like 20th rank on that particular league. That will give you some sort of momentum and encouragement of a competitive edge in your thinking process where you will be feeling competitive and motivated to fight against others in your league. And it also gets crazy sometimes based upon the time you enter the league, because there will always be some folks who are really enthusiastic and crazy about it, so they will just jump in and do this as full time as part of their day, and they will be able to get a lot of XPs, their experience points, and it will be like really crazy to sustain a particular league. However, I was able to be in the final league, which is the diamond league, for some time recently. Before just before the 500 days, I got demoted to obsidian league, the previous league, and as part of this 500 days, I was able to move to the diamond league now. I feel like that also played a significant role in giving me some sort of competitive mindset and thrill of trying to contribute to the language learning as part of the gamified leaderboards and dashboards. Now, some of the things that I didn't like about Duolingo is their ads. They are not too frequent. However, they have video ads that comes and creates some noise whenever you're trying to focus on language learning. So that's somewhat disturbing, but not too inconvenient. So I can ignore that as well. But a major problem with Duolingo is that it's not really intense enough for moderate or expert level language learning seekers. So from a Dutch language perspective, I totally felt like I'm only able to cover until beginner level. That's also like not too complete because I did not find all sets of vocabularies and words that a beginner should be able to learn as part of the Dutch language, as part of the 79 milestones that I've reached. I felt like I was able to reach it significantly easier, but there were a lot of repeating contents that were also really annoying, because whenever you move from one level to next level, the lessons don't get upgraded. The lessons sometimes repeat frequently that irritate you. You just get by hearted with all the sentences that they have instead of trying to have more amount of sentences and lessons built by experts that help language learners to be able to better learn and perform based upon increasing difficulties and expertise. Next, I'll give some inputs about the Dutch language, how I felt about learning it. Then I'll move to the final part, which is some of the tips I can give as a new language learner to those who are trying to learn something out of their free time to make their dreams come true. Personally, I felt like Dutch language is a bit complicated compared to English or any other European language per se. Not German, but it felt like German and Russian are really complicated European languages. But it's on a moderate level where there are a lot of emphasis on pronunciations like or or so where you have to use your throat most of the time. So the essential words in Dutch language predominantly focus on your throat instead of your tongue or your abdomen, where from my native language perspective, I use a lot of tongue or abdomen, while it is difficult to pronounce some of the Dutch words, like how they give emphasis on phonetical words like consonants. For example, good, they pronounce as hood, which is like the G typically feels like H, but it's not. And some of the things like their past tense and their third person singular tense verbs, they are sometimes confusing because the past tense ends with D while the singular form verbs ends with T. So when it is about past tense or singular tense in a third person perspective, it is really confusing in sentences. So I often failed such type of sentences because I'm not able to grasp that TD variation in Dutch language. The next difficulty I faced as part of the Dutch language learning is their compound and complex sentences. So the format in which they are represented in English are totally different from how they are formed in Dutch language sentences, especially the complex sentences, how they rearrange verb and adjectives in the sentences when compared to English sentences. So it was really confusing, but I often fail nowadays as well whenever there are some sentences which are typically constructed in a different way that are confusing than the normal formula of compound or complex sentences, even the Dutch language grammar. But it is really hard to crack for me because they aren't always simple simple, but based upon my experience, I felt like it will become easier whenever like we keep practicing. So whenever we try to understand the core of their language structure and their formula of sentence formation, I felt like it is really easy for me to understand, but it is a bit tricky on some of edge cases when it comes to mentioning time or talking about something that happened in the past, like 1 year ago or a few days ago, etc. So the sentence formation and the complex sentence formula doesn't really apply everywhere the same. So that is also a bit confusing for me. Also, there are some special handling of words. For example, in Duolingo, it shows as some word that is usual, but according to the sentence formation, it gets different. And that's also some of the places where I failed as part of my learning the Dutch language. But I felt like more of a tool issue instead of the language issue, where they have special cases like goodbye. It's not said as good, it is mentioned as tot ziens. And anything related to goodbye will often be referred with the word tot, but it's not directly translated. So the sentence formation changes according to some of the special cases, and the tool doesn't handle them really well. But ultimately, I fell in love with the Dutch language because it is totally different from all the European languages. It's pretty easy when compared to German or Russian. However, there are some special cases and sentence formats and formulas that people should be aware of. And still, I'm in the beginner phase. I would be glad to explore more into moderator or expert level Dutch conversational mode. So I felt like I like Dutch language and I will be able to pursue to the further levels of learning Dutch language. So here are some of the tips that I would like to give for those who are willing to learn a new language as part of their hobby or willingness to adventure into the new world as part of their job or to the country that they've moved as part of their work or life. So first tip is to make time. So you have to make some amount of time. You can start small as much as like 5 minutes, but you should give a committed time to language learning. So that's the key. So you should make sure that you give it constantly, at least like 5 or 6 times a week, so that you never give up the momentum of learning a new language. You have to be in the pace. So you can start off with Duolingo if it has the language that you're willing to learn, because I really like the gamified aspects related to language learning in Duolingo, the leagues and the leaderboards. I felt like they were really pushing me sometimes whenever I was trying to give up. So I felt like you can start small and you need to stick with it. You should not break the chain, as Jerry Seinfeld shares in his famous quote, that you should not break chain whenever you're trying to improve yourself on a particular aspect or a field or a method that you're trying, that you should stick with learning it for a continuous amount of time, and you should also incrementally put your effort on that particular thing that you're trying to accomplish, and you'll definitely be able to achieve what you're trying to do in that particular aspect of your life. Next important thing is to make sure you write down all the important words or sentences that you feel difficult, and you just keep practicing them in your free time. That helps in like your next lesson whenever you're trying to face the same sentence or the formation or a formula that you have identified. So you need to make sure to identify patterns or formula that are applied as part of the sentence formation or the grammar or that particular language that you're trying to learn. So that is also an essential aspect of knowing the basics and trying to repeat whatever you are feeling difficult. So repetition is also a key, and it is also good for you to identify patterns and formulas that you can easily apply in the future as well. The next step is to assess at each level when you are making a progress. So whether you are making it to the next level appropriately or you are just getting stuck in the same level. For example, this is a good assessment when you can do, you have reached that particular level, the end, and you aren't able to progress much or learn more on top of whatever you already learned, because you're just getting the same content because the tool is limited, like Duolingo or any other aspect like that. So you can just assess where you are, what you want to do, and where you are willing to reach, and the amount of progress you're making, and the circumstances that you are using to reach that particular position, whether it is good enough for that position that you're trying to achieve or not. If it is good for the current level, then you can use that potential tool or the method till that particular level. But when you're trying to move to the next level, you should also assess whether the current circumstances or the tools that you're using is helping you to move to that particular level. That's also a good thing when you're trying to learn a new skill or a new language, anything that you're trying out with your life as part of your time that you're spending on. So another important thing is, the final tip is to make sure you have fun, because if you stress yourself with new things that you're learning, it will be a burden to you. You will hate doing it. But when you enjoy doing it, it will be like a good benefit. At the end, you will just have more fun and learning as well when you're trying to like learn a new skill or a language. So just make it fun and enjoy it, instead of like straining yourself or stressing yourself with unrealistic goals or unrealistic expectations to just complete the work and make sure you just check it off your list. Instead, you just make sure you get the essence of what you're doing and you like actually doing it. So have fun. Don't forget to have fun. That's the final tip. So finally, we have come to the end of this video. I hope I did not bore you with so much of information or anything that I've done as preaching what I have done. I'm just trying to give some input and share some experience that I've gone through for those who are doing the same thing or trying to achieve similar things and are looking for motivation and tips. So I hope I've given some information for those who are finding it useful. So don't forget to share it with your friends that there is an introvert like me who just does adventurous things like going on adventurous solo trips or learning new languages out of the blue to keep himself entertained and keep his life interesting as well as challenging. Don't forget to share your thoughts on the comments and give me inputs on what I can do and improve with my life, and anything that you find that I can change as part of the approach that I'm using. Keep supporting me, subscribe to my channel, and thanks for watching. Don't forget to click on the bell icon to get notifications on my future videos that are of some use or help to you in the future. Thank you.